Hey everybody. In this video, we are going to talk about section 10.1, point estimation of the population mean. So we've talked about point estimators before in the last chapter, chapter 9, when we did sampling distributions. But just to remind you, I have two definitions here. First, an estimator is a statistic that estimates a population parameter. A point estimator uses a single point to estimate a population parameter. And we've talked about this idea before. For example, we use the sample mean as a point estimator of the population mean. Because again, a lot of times we don't have the actual population parameters. So we use information gathered from samples to estimate what we think the population parameter will be. So here's a little chart. Don't worry about this second row here. This is talking about proportions, which we're not doing in this class. But you should recognize, this symbol for sample mean. That's a point estimator for population mean. And sample standard deviation, I was like, what's S? That's standard deviation. We use that to estimate population standard deviation. So really, everything in 10.1, it's really short, and it's stuff we've already talked about. We're just kind of reiterating a few things. There are a few questions in the homework, and I do want to go over these real quick, just to make sure everyone has a clear idea of what you're expected to do. So if you read number 1, in a sample of 136 pipes, the average diameter was found to be 3.94 inches with a variance of 0.26. And they want us to give a point estimate for the population variance of the diameter of the pipes. Okay, so they're asking us not for the actual population variance because we don't have that information. They want to know what would the point estimate be for the population variance. And really, you can just pull this information straight out of the problem. They took a sample, and in that sample, the average diameter, that's the average, was 3.94, but they had a variance of 0.26. So that's actually your answer, 0.26. That's the sample variance, and we use that to estimate the population variance. Number 2, what is the best point estimate for the population's variance if the sample standard deviation is 19.1? So they want to know, again, the best point estimate for the population's variance, but they don't give us any information about the variance. They just tell us that we know the sample standard deviation is 19.1. And we can actually use standard deviation to find the variance. So sample standard deviation we denote with an S. Sample variance we denote with an S squared. And basically, variance is the square of the sample standard deviation. Since they're giving us the standard deviation, we just have to square this value, 19.1 squared, and then we will have our correct answer. So I'm typing it into my calculator really quick. And it says to round to 1 decimal place, so our approximate answer is going to be 364.8. And that is the point estimate for the population variance. All right, one more. A sample of 5 strings of thread is randomly selected, and the following thicknesses are measured in millimeters. Give a point estimate for the population standard deviation. Round your answer to 3 decimal places. Okay, so now they're giving us some data, and we have to figure out the sample standard deviation, right? This is the sample data. So we can find the sample standard deviation, and from there we can use that as a point estimate for the population standard deviation. So here you're going to have to use Excel. I already put the numbers in over here. In the homework, you'll be able to just hit copy data and then paste it into Excel. And we want to find the sample standard deviation. So start typing it in. I have a Mac, and for some reason it won't try to help me with the formula, but I know the formula. So the sample standard deviation is STDEV dot S, and then parentheses, and then now it pops up, and then highlight your numbers, close parentheses, and enter. And they said to round to, I think, 3 decimal places. So what I like to do is just go ahead and format this number. Let me make this bigger so I can see all my options. I'm going to decrease the number of decimals, so there's only 3 decimal places, and it kind of does the rounding for me, which is very nice. So to 3 decimal places, we have 0.055. And that would be our answer. So the homework in this section, there's some calculation that you're going to have to do, but they're just asking for the actual point estimates themselves. And some problems, it's just going to be given straight to you. You know, in this problem, we had to square it to figure out the sample variance, which is our point estimate for population variance. And then here, we actually needed to use Excel to calculate our sample standard deviation, which again, that's then our point estimate for population standard deviation. All right. Section 10.2 will be presented in another video.